If you're able-bodied, born in the US, count your f***ing blessings. Isn't your dad subsidizing then your lifestyle?
Hey, I'm truly self-made and I started there and you can do it too.
It's like, bro, you inherited your family business at 20 years old that was already profitable with 3 locations. Zach Highley, how I feel 6 months after leaving medicine.
I spent 10 years becoming a doctor, but now I quit. My name is Zach, and I was an internal medicine doctor in Boston, and I left 6 months ago to move back to Pennsylvania and do something else with my life. This video is going to be not relevant to a lot of people, right? But I thought it would be helpful to those facing, a big career change, those in medicine that don't feel like it's for them, to see what it's like for someone who's come through to the other side, someone who thought everyone's told them medicine's the only thing, being a doctor is the only thing. How do you actually quit? You can't quit. Who quits? No one quits, but I quit.
2 things there. Number 1, this conversation is super important and relevant to everyone in medicine, even if they're not deciding to quit, because it gives you more perspective as to the relative strengths and weaknesses, different thought processes of individuals in medicine. The second thing is the whole idea of not quitting, I find so fascinating because it seems like this widely misunderstood concept. I think it's important to not quit and not give up in terms of the effort you put into life towards working towards your goals. But if your priorities change, if your vision of life changes, if you have an updated and improved understanding of what a current path is leading towards. Let's say, most pre-meds don't understand what being a doctor actually is, which is why we try so hard on both this channel and on Med School Insiders to educate them with Why I Didn't, So You Want to Be, other series to close that gap. But if you get to that point where you realize, oh, actually, this is not what I expected, and or your priorities shift, there's no shame in quitting. I would say the whole don't quit mentality is more about the effort and vigor you should apply to life in general, not necessarily one commitment that you made 5 or 10 years ago in terms of a career path.
And I want to talk to you about kind of what these 6 months have been since I left. So let's start with, I think, the most fun one, which was the internet's reaction to my hour-long video of me leaving medicine.
By the way, we reacted to that video right up here. And since then, Zach reached out to me. We've had many, many calls since then, and we've developed a friendship. He reached out being super authentic and humble and open, and he's a likable guy, right? So we've chatted many times since. We actually just chatted yesterday. And I told him, I said, dude, my team is suggesting that I react to your updated video, but now I'm like, I don't know, man. If you're a friend, then it's obviously harder for me to be as unfiltered. It's going to be too biased. He's like, no, dude. Like, just go unfiltered, be authentic. I love the unfiltered takes, so we're going to do our best to keep it as unfiltered as possible, which I think gives him even more kudos to ask for that kind of response.
After this video, I've gotten the most comments, the most emails, the most random people that I thought I'd never talk to in high school, college, medical school, everywhere, just actually reaching out to me. It seems I kind of struck a chord with a lot of people. I want to thank so many of you for being so supportive and so kind.
You'll notice a pattern that across various influencers and public people, when they're authentic and vulnerable, it resonates so much harder just because most of the time we're not like that. And I'm not saying that every single day, every single moment, we need to wear our heart on our sleeves and overshare, but there's a time and a place to be open and authentic and vulnerable. And this was Zach's time, right? For me, it's telling people that I had inflammatory bowel disease and why I kept it secret for so long. And that also resulted in a lot of inbound messages of gratitude and a lot of positivity because I was inspired by this book of this author who had ulcerative colitis, and he was a NFL quarterback. That left a huge impact on me, and I was like, wow, I can do the same for others in a different way. So I made a YouTube video about it. And then similarly, when I talked about quitting residency, again, a lot of positivity. It's polarizing, but that vulnerability is a very powerful lead domino.
And I think I've polarized people, right? There's people who seem to be really supportive and really like me. And then, now there's people who really don't. And I don't think I've ever had real haters on the internet until that last video.
When you start being more authentic to who you are naturally going to polarize. When you try to be likable to everyone, no one really loves you, no one really hates you. You're kind of in this middle ground. But when you start being more true to yourself, just like in real life, some people will love you, some people will hate you, but that authenticity is the best way to approach any of these endeavors.
But I've had a vast majority of supportive comments. I think I've gotten 14 invites to stay at people's houses across the world and be their primary doctor, which I definitely shouldn't be, right? Because I only practiced for a year of internal medicine. I'm nowhere near qualified to do that, and I've told all of them to reach out to their normal doctors, but it's flattering. But I'm really extremely grateful for all of you because I wouldn't have been able to do anything like this without the support of honestly honestly YouTube and kind of the payments I get from YouTube, and also some of my courses and the income I get from that. It's created freedom for me, right? It's created happiness. It's created opportunities. I've connected with people. I've connected with you guys in ways that I never thought possible.
Starting a YouTube channel is one of those lead dominoes that has so many unintended positive downstream consequences. I actually cover that over on my Jabal and Cars channel, why you should consider starting a YouTube channel.
With such a positive response, there was of course the negative. For the first time ever, I've had people commenting not only on my YouTube channel, not only on my Twitter, not only on my Instagram, but emailing me, which I only see because I thought the point of commenting and being angry on the internet was so other people could, like your comment and stuff like that. But no, they even individually emailed me and said things like, "You are the problem with humanity. Please never post on the internet ever again. I can't believe anyone would listen to you," and very specific and mean things. And
dude, I feel bad for Zach. I mean, he's such like an earnest, genuine guy, and then he's like, dude, why are people being such dicks? And it's when you zoom out, it makes a lot of sense because his value system is different than their value system. Him leaving medicine because of his own priorities or shifting life perspective or whatever it is, challenges those haters' values to say that, oh my God, medicine is number one, being a doctor is number one. Not quitting medicine is a very high virtue to them. And therefore, to do any of those things that challenges their values, they don't consciously realize that, but they just get triggered and react in this very hateful way, which is silly and is like, you can't let them have any sort of importance over you. But that's not to be mistaken with those who have really thoughtful feedback. So the haters that are just trying to be negative for the sake of being negative, it's very easy to discard it as like, okay, this person's just a hater. There's no value here. But those people that give you those difficult comments that make you think, I think for me, it was like, there was one comment that was so thoughtful. It was like, Kevin, I think you're too perfectionistic and your fear of not being perfect is what has led you to leave medicine because you wouldn't be perfect enough doing two separate things. You want to be perfect enough doing one thing or something along those lines. And I remember just like sitting and thinking about that for like a day or two. The person's not being a hater. They're being very thoughtful. And that's where you can learn and grow. But don't give the haters your time of day.
It was just interesting to me because I've never really had real haters on the internet until now. And this is the first time I think I have some haters. But the most interesting to me and honestly unexpected and kind of actually worrying thing for me was the discussion that I saw a lot of medical students and residents and doctors saying is, should we leave medicine? Should we not do it anymore? Is it just not a good path to take? And I don't think that's the right response.
Here's the thing. People have been leaving modern medicine since the inception of modern medicine. You can thank Daddy Halstead for that. But the issue is how it is portrayed online and in various media. So even at the beginning of social media, let's say 2005, 2010, something around there, you didn't see people having these videos, hey, I quit medicine and here's why and here's my thought process. But over time, it became more and more popular. And at the beginning, it's higher risk, higher friction. There's more uncertainty because you don't know how people will react. I think I was one of the first, if not the first person on YouTube to make a, like this extended video explaining, hey, I left plastic surgery and here's why. And it was high risk. It was uncertain as to how people would receive it. And each time another person makes a video, it gets a little bit easier. It becomes a little bit more normalized. So then you see 20, 30, 40, 50 people making these videos. And with each subsequent year, you'll see more and more because the cost, the friction of making that video lowers each time another person makes a video. And therefore, out of the 300 people, 500 people, whatever it is that quit medicine every single year, the proportion of them that feel like they want to make a YouTube video is going to increase proportionally. Even if that actual amount stays constant, the proportion who are creating YouTube videos about it increases, which causes the perception to be that, oh my God, everyone's leaving medicine. Not really, it's just that more people are talking about it.
My intention wasn't to say people should leave medicine and do something else. My intention was to kind of share a deeply personal story, right? And also try and help people to pay attention to what's inside of them, right? And I also wanted to share with people that leaving medicine isn't taboo, right? I think when I was first considering doing something like this, everyone told me, no one does this. You can't do this. You have to at least finish residency. You can't leave after the first year of residency. No one does that.
I would actually argue that with each subsequent year, it becomes more and more normalized. It becomes less and less taboo. Far more taboo several years ago. And also keep in mind, who are you talking to? Because people in medicine obviously are surrounded by medicine or completely immersed in the field. So it seems very foreign to them. And I remember when I first left and I was connecting with other entrepreneurs that were in my area, it was a completely different world that I wasn't even aware of. Granted, back then there was less social media content about this stuff, but I learned so much from other people. And I remember thinking that there's just so much more out there that I wasn't even aware of, because we're so laser focused, we're working so hard, we have so little free time in medicine, and all we think about is medicine.
In the past 6 months since I posted that video, I've had countless people reach out to me saying, Zach, I feel drained. I feel almost, it's killing me being in this medicine, being in this residency and stuff like that. And I've advised them individually, and I can't advise you individually on what to do, right? But what I can say is it's so important to pay attention to what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and try to zone out what other people are telling you how to feel and how to think.
Some quick tips: meditation, journaling, extended discussions with close, trusted friends and family, and even therapists. All very helpful to get additional clarity into that inner state and what's going on.
Dr. Okusanya, I have a podcast with him, one of my mentors, and he asked me the question, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think it's a really, really important question, right? Because you're asking this for yourself. You're not asking it for other people. You're not asking it for, your parents or money or something like that, right? You're asking this for yourself.
That's a really important analogy right there. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Obviously, the juice being the benefit, the upside, and the squeeze being the struggle, the downside. For every single person, that calculus will vary based on a ton of factors that I'm sure we're going to get further into in this video. But keep in mind, juice and squeeze, downside, upside, cost, benefit. There are things you can do to increase or decrease the relative squeeze and the relative juice on either side of the equation. And that can be specialty choice, aligning with your personal values, personal circumstances in terms of other responsibilities, finances, tons and tons of things that we'll get to more later in this video.
And when I really truly asked myself this question, excluding all kind of external things coming in, the opinions of it, everything like that, I realized it wasn't worth the squeeze, and I quit because I knew I'd become a zombie if I stayed in medicine. But I think going into medicine and being a doctor is still a really, really amazing and noble and valuable thing. As physicians, we're truly privileged to be with people at kind of the most difficult times in their life. No one else in the world has these kinds of opportunities. Value it, listen to your patients, talk to your patients, and really be there for them as the light in their darkness. And you can change not only their lives, right, but your own.
Well said, well said. In these discussions, we're talking to the gray. We're not saying medicine is all good or all bad. When people say, oh, he quit, oh my God, he hates medicine. No, we're talking to the nuance. There are great, amazing things with medicine, and there are also downsides to medicine. We're having a nuanced discussion. It's not black and white.
And my advice for these newer doctors, I can't really advise older doctors, right, because I only practiced for 1 year, right, but is to really lean in. On your OBGYN rotation, if you're not interested in OBGYN rotation, really try and talk to the other doctors. Learn about what they're doing. Speak to the patients. Be really involved and interested in what's going on. On your surgery rotation, ask questions during the procedure. Research the procedure the night before. Be motivated and excited by what you're getting into. On your internal medicine rotations, if you're on the cardiology floors or something like that, try and understand the heart. And I don't say this so you can get good grades and do the best and blah, 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 because I really don't give a shit about that, and I think that doing that for that reason is not a great reason, and I wish I realized that earlier. Why I say these things is because it's so beneficial for your excitement and enjoyment, and for you to really try to understand what you want your life to be if you lean into these things, right? Because hopefully, whatever you do in life, you're gonna be leaning into it, right? It's gonna be your thing.
I love this piece of advice. This is so good. Have you noticed some people that constantly seem bored unless they are so stimulated and in the perfect environment at the perfect concert or the perfect movie or the perfect party, and only then they light up and they're happy? And then you find other people who are never bored and they always find something fascinating and intriguing about the environment around them or the situation that they're in. That's not because the former is in worse or more boring situations than the latter. It's because of the way that they view the world and choose to view the world, I should say. Because that second person who finds the excitement and the awe and the wonder and the curiosity and all the little things is just approaching life through the lens of there is something here that I haven't noticed yet. I want to learn, I want to experience. And it's those people, those exact same people who will enjoy medical school far more than the first group. Because the first group says, oh my God, med school was such a slog, it was challenging and I hated this and I hated that. Whereas the second group is like, oh my God, I'm learning so much about the human body. This is so fascinating. I didn't know this about the brain, even though I'm looking at doing cardiology. this other thing about the GI system is very interesting, and you end up enjoying the process more, which then does two things. It first of all allows you to put in more effort in, and also it allows you to learn at an accelerated pace. And then by no surprise, you end up performing far better, and you're oftentimes a top student as a result of just that simple mindset. Lead domino, guys, lead domino.
And finally, I want to comment, the last internet comment, right, on how I could leave, right, my financial situation. I'm extremely, extremely lucky, right? I was born on the East Coast. I don't have any genetic or other health issues that I was raised with. My family was able to pay for all my college and all my medical school, so I didn't have any loans leaving any of those things. I'm extremely, extremely lucky and honestly privileged to have these things going into it.
I'm so glad that Zach is talking about that in this video, because that was one of the critiques I had towards the end of that first reaction video. I think many people talk about the privilege, but there's two things that are missed. First is how big of an impact privilege is. And number two, even though it is a huge impact, it doesn't actually define your options and lock you into a certain path. It just makes your calculus and risk assessment shifted heavily in one direction or another. So the reason why a lot of people don't appreciate it is that I have many, many, many friends. I thought that it was a small minority like this, but I have many, many friends and colleagues and acquaintances who, yeah, they had all of college paid for, all of med school paid for. They had the down payment on their house done. Some of them have even trust funds where they've already inherited a few $1,000,000 by now in their 30s. And a lot of people downplay it to say,
oh yeah, I have these funds, but I haven't really touched it. Or yeah, it was a down payment, it's only like $250K.
What they don't realize is if they didn't have that, then they would have to put up that money themselves. And the opportunity cost is way, 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 way more than $250K. It is actually the compounding effect of that $250K over the course of your lifetime. It's millions and millions of dollars. Now, not only that mathematically, but your risk assessment completely changes. Zach comes from a privileged background, and a lot of people on Reddit and such were commenting on like his family background and his dad and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, he's definitely on one end of the spectrum. That does change the calculus, because if you quit, you have a support system. You have many opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have without that background. However, both me and Zach, I would say that I'm closer on this other end of the spectrum. I'm not going to say that I had the hardest life. I did not grow up in the ghetto. I grew up in a great neighborhood. And I definitely did not have an easy upbringing. I talk more about that in other videos. Sharing a queen mattress with my mom for several years, even into my early 20s, inflammatory bowel disease, a very challenging upbringing, a lot of family issues, a lot of financial issues. Not a childhood that I want for my future kids by any means. And yet, both me and Zach chose similar paths to quit. Now, there are some differences that I'm sure we'll get to in the video as to why we quit and how we were able to justify that decision. But what I don't want is for people who see that by having some level of privilege, which again, Zach may be on one end of the spectrum, and there are a lot of people who are not that far, but still had college and med school paid for. People that don't have the loan burden to worry about when it comes to quitting, which is one of the biggest things. While that gives you more optionality and reduces the risk of quitting, that doesn't eliminate that possibility. You can stack the calculus, you can stack the risk assessment in your favor, where it still makes sense to pursue your dreams, to pursue entrepreneurship, to pursue this other path, even without coming from privilege. And I hate when people online are saying, oh yeah, completely irrelevant conversation because he comes from privilege, therefore, who cares? It's like, well, there's a lot of gray area here. Let's talk about his decision calculus. Let's talk about other people's decision calculus to figure out what is and is not applicable to your situation. And just to round that out, make sure the point was made. I did not have college paid for. I paid for my own college. I did not have med school paid for. I paid for my own med school. I did not have a down payment on my house. I earned every fucking cent of that. And yet I was still able to leave plastic surgery residency and pursue a path of entrepreneurship that closer aligned with my values and my vision for my future life, despite not coming from immense privilege. I am privileged in the sense that I was born and raised in the US. That alone is such a huge leg up that we do not appreciate enough. And many people complain about it. It's like, dude, if you're able-bodied, born in the US, count your fucking blessings. Because there are so many people that are so entitled, that are healthy, able-bodied, come from good families, that still find a way to be victims. It is wild.
And also, my parents are just amazing human beings and incredibly supportive. And finally, of course, I have you guys on YouTube, so I can pay for like rent and food and all these other like normal life living things thanks to you guys, right? And I don't have the debt from college and stuff like that because my parents paid for my undergraduate education and my graduate medical school education, and I'm so extremely lucky and thankful to them for that. Again, I can only speak to my situation. I have no idea what it might be like to be born in a different country where you just simply don't have access to a lot of these things, or you can't even afford to pay for food or something like that, right? All I can comment on is my situation, and I'm so lucky and so grateful to be where I am because of my parents, where I was born, and all these kind of things.
What I want to add there too is that we oftentimes focus on like the med school, the college, the down payment on the house, but even things like being able to travel, go on vacation, and afford that is something that many people don't appreciate. I knew someone who was very proud that they were traveling solo in their mid-20s, taking 2 years off from work, and they did it all on their own. And then when I asked them, oh, who's like paying your rent, who's paying your cell phone bill, who's paying your car insurance, who's paying for your car, I was like, oh, my dad. So I'm like, wait, so isn't your dad subsidizing then your lifestyle to give you all of your normal daily living stuff so that you can then take your entire paycheck and then just put that towards saving for a vacation? And there's like this disconnect that I find so fascinating. But there is a way around that. I started credit card churning in medical school. I talk about my lessons learned credit card churning here, which is how I was able to save tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even close to 100K at this point, from credit card points and optimizing and signing up and all these things. There's a lot of strategy involved, but that lets you fly and stay in hotels for close to free. Such a huge value add.
However, this YouTube money that a lot of people think I'm making is nowhere near as crazy as some people on the internet are saying. Yes, thanks to kind of not having any debt or loans or anything like that, all the money I make for YouTube is really enough to support like rent and food and the occasional travel and something like that. But it's not like I never have to work again for the rest of my life, or I'm making tens of millions of dollars a year from these YouTube videos. It's in no way, shape, or form like that.
And let's just take a moment to appreciate Zach. He is owning whatever privilege he may come from. That's all we can hope for. Is he a bad person for coming from privilege? Obviously not. And I don't like that energy that we see online. It's like, dude, the only issue I have is when people, and I talk more about this on the car channel, a bit more unfiltered. The only issue I have is when people act as if they're not, when they are, and are completely out of touch, completely far removed from that. And when they obfuscate their background, they lie about the facts and say that,
hey, I'm truly self-made and I started there and you can do it too.
It's like, bro, you inherited your family business at 20 years old that was already profitable with 3 locations. And now you got these puff pieces online talking about how you immigrated from this country and you started this thing from scratch. Bullshit. Oddly specific, huh?
But how do I feel after actually leaving medicine? How do I feel 6 months later? Well, the first month after leaving, I think I talked about it before, but essentially I realized that my whole body was on battery savings mode. I was essentially at 20% on battery savings mode, and it was only after a month of eating, sleeping, exercising, and doing all the normal things that humans are meant to do that I actually started to feel like a normal person again. And I wasn't able to realize those things, right, until I actually did it. It's like it was a hidden battery percentage. You can only see kind of what you're missing after you leave it, right? Or at least that's what I experienced.
Dude, I totally relate to that. Zach bounced back from it faster than I did, or at least adjusted to it. I remember more than a year later, I was living in Vegas, and I still hadn't quite adjusted to the fact that I was now able to sleep 7 to 8 hours, because prior to that, since I was 18 years old, just starting college, go, I never drank much caffeine because of my inflammatory bowel disease. And I would instead rely on that cortisol and adrenaline to just give me that up sympathetic state. And I was very, very frequently sleep deprived. So I was used to that for more than a decade, from 18 years old up until I quit at 28. Actually, yeah, just right about a decade. And because it was ingrained, and I didn't take any gap years, I didn't have any big international trips that lasted a long time. So like I wasn't really able to fully decompress. I guess it was just the norm. And I just operated in that elevated state such that when I was in Vegas, more than a year after leaving, I remember feeling weird and like feeling like I missed that sympathetic state, because it gave me this wired, amped, elevated feeling that helped me focus, helped me power through work a little bit more intentionally. And here I was, not having a lot of cortisol and adrenaline and being able to sleep more. And as strange as it sounds, it took me more than a year to get used to that. and to adjust to the more normal way of living rather than thinking back to, oh man, I wish I still had that, that sympathetic elevated state. I then was finally able to readjust and make this normal the new normal.
But after that month, after like recovering, I started to get kind of stressed because for me, I like to have my life planned out. I like to know exactly what my life is going to be. And when I don't have a plan, it really stresses me out. I mean, I've only had one panic attack in my entire life, right? And I've only really been stressed in my entire life. I'm very lucky that I don't have any of these psychiatrically significant disorder like depression, anxiety, anything like that.
As humans, we all love control and certainty, but that's not the world.
But I only had one of those things, or close to one of those things, maybe when I was applying to medical school, right? Because I didn't know what my life was going to be. This is what I told everyone I was going to do. I was going to dedicate my life to it, and I still didn't have an acceptance for like 6 months, and it really stressed me out. And the same thing started to happen a month after I left medicine, because I realized that I need to figure out what my job's going to be. Am I going to be a YouTube creator? Well, I don't actually make that much money from YouTube. What is my life going to be? What is my life going to be? What is my life going to be? And those thoughts start to circle in my head, and they stress me out a little bit.
It's both exciting and terrifying, and it depends on how you frame it, because excitement and terror, or fear, I should say, are almost identical physiologic responses. It comes down to how you frame it. That then colors your experience. And I still remember I was sitting at my table. This is in my my last day of residency vlog, where I'm like tabula rasa, blank slate. And it's kind of exciting because there is no stepwise path, progression, structure you need to follow. It is completely up to you, which is scary in one way because there's uncertainty, but it's also exciting and empowering in another way because you have control over your destiny. And how you feel about it is going to depend on the story you tell yourself. And that same thing on a much lower scale happens even when it comes to test taking. You'll see two types of students: those who crumble on test day and perform far worse than their knowledge would predict, because they psych themselves out, they're stressed, they're just overstimulated, and they have a suboptimal framing and self-talk during the test and even leading up to the test. And then the other students that will almost always perform better on the test than you would expect based on their knowledge or based on their prior practice tests, because they see that as a test, as a challenge, as excitement, as like, yo, time to go. Let's see what I'm made of. It comes down to your framing, because I think that is one of the most underappreciated and most powerful ways of improving your test performance. It's just that simple mindset. And we already have some videos covering that over on Med School Insiders. We have a whole study strategies playlist that dives into that more.
To toot my horn a little bit, I think I am pretty resilient. Like, I think when things don't go according to plan, I actually react decently well and I can adapt, right? But I don't react well when there is no plan. I kind of need there to be a plan, and then I can change on the fly, right? But if I don't have a plan, it makes me feel just like, what the heck am I doing?
But oftentimes life is going to hit you in the face and you won't have a plan, right? And I find this stuff so fascinating because it's so easy for us to color our perceptions, judge the things around us as either good or bad. And there's that parable of that Chinese parable of like the horse, right? The horse that essentially teaches you nothing is either good or bad. It's how you perceive it. And I know a lot of you watching have some tremendous struggles, and I've heard some gut-wrenching stories over the years, and I thank you all for sharing those with me. And I wish sometimes that I could help more. I know that when I hopefully one day have a family, for my future kids, I would never want them to face these struggles. At the same time, there is a silver lining that if these hypothetical future children of mine were to face, I would want them to face it with this mindset of silver lining. Because what you'll notice, what I've noticed as a pattern with some other people that I've met in my life, especially in my 20s, everyone has problems. It's human nature to push against something, to have some kind of struggle. And sometimes those who have easier lives will have these struggles and push against things that you may have considered not as big of a deal in your life. But it's human nature to, again, have struggles and push against something. There's a silver lining to when shit sucks, man. And I am grateful for the shit that sucked for me in my late teens and in my 20s. 18 years old, just started college like 3 months prior. A lot of pain, a lot of weight loss. I was 6'1", 155 pounds, and I lost 30 pounds. It wasn't a pretty sight. And there's a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. And then literally 2 months later, my parents split. And then a lot of financial strain too, and now I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment with my mom and my brother. He sleeps on the couch. I share the same bed with my mom. small queen mattress, not an ideal situation, not a situation I want to be in. And then I'm also sharing a one bathroom with 2 adults with this not well controlled inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's colitis, a lot of pain. Just like it's seared into my memory. It is to this day by far the worst, most challenging time of my life. And yet I'm still alive. And not only that, I'm actually grateful because it taught me these skills of sublimation. When shit sucks, you sublimate that, you transform that, convert it into fuel, and propel yourself forward toward the goals you have, toward the outcomes you want. And if my life was easier, I wouldn't have learned those skills. And now in my 30s, I wouldn't be able to look back and say, yeah, shit is tough. Every few years, you'll have some struggles. When I have struggles now, I'm like, oh, dude, this shit's fucking easy mode. Remember that back when I was 18 to like 22? That shit fucking sucked. But I was able to get through that, and I learned these lessons, and I built that true self-confidence. I did not fake it till I made it. I dealt with the hard, shitty shit, and then I worked through it, and I came out the other side better than ever. Silver lining, how do you interpret it?
Not having a plan in my brain is like the cogwheel, if you think those cogwheels together, moving in different directions, right? You can try and force it in the other direction, but it creaks, it grinds, it groans, it scratches. It's not what it's meant to do, right? And that's what it feels like in my brain when I try to just do something without a plan. You should see me like on spontaneous dates or spontaneous events. It's a rough sight, and I'm really trying to be more spontaneous and do things without thinking about them. But my brain, I just don't think there's things in there that do that. It's not there.
It's totally there, Zach. It's totally there. You just gotta, going back to the framing, just like frame that fear as excitement and lean into that and just trust the process, and it'll get easier with time and you'll grow to love it. And if you love it enough, you may even start becoming an adrenaline junkie.
So for the second month, so 1 month I was, recovering my body. The second month I was stressed out about what my life was going to be. I was really considering 4 options, right? Full-time job opportunities, part-time job opportunities, non-classical job opportunities, and then like pursuing this thing full-time. But once that month was done, month number 2, and I decided what I was actually doing, I felt much better. But after I decided that, right, essentially this new career option, right, is going to start in fall of 2025. So I really had 10 months, or pretty much a year, before this new thing started. So this meant for the first time in my entire life, I had 10 months off to do whatever I wanted to do. But as I am a planning and, I want to be successful and do great things and immediately in month number 3, so after I decided what my life was going to be doing, I planned the next 12 YouTube videos. I was writing them, I was recording them, I was trying to get my B-roll in tech, I was I was really jumped right back in at like 120% speed. But it was too fast, too soon. It's almost like when you play soccer, when I play soccer, and you start the game without like doing a little jog or some stretching, and inevitably, right, when I do that, I'll twist my ankle and it'll ruin my soccer for like the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's what I did, I think. I twisted my brain ankle by just diving into this way too quickly after working pretty hard for 10 years.
This is so fascinating. And I love these conversations. And again, kudos to Zach for being so open about this whole process. There's no right or wrong, should or shouldn't. That is what did not work for him, is diving into intensity. I remember when I first left, the first 2 weeks, I tried to not dive into intensity. I tried to do the opposite. I tried to be more unstructured, don't plan my day, get a workout in the morning, and then come back and kind of do what I feel like. And after 2 weeks, I was just feeling kind of icky. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't like it. So one day, after about 2 weeks, I created a schedule, hour by hour, how I want to spend my day. When am I doing administrative work versus focused work, deep work? When am I working out, etc.? And instantly the next day, things just felt right. And I was like, cool, I'm now moving with such a higher pace toward my goals. And again, I was crashing at my mom's at the time. And back then I was making YouTube videos in my mom's backyard, because there's like literally, it's like such a small spot that there's like no place to film indoors. And my girlfriend actually teases me. She calls my bedroom the dorm room because everything's so tiny. My tiny twin mattress where my feet hang off at night, and the desk that barely fits with the dresser. And it's like, anyways, there was some level of discomfort, and perhaps that was giving me more of a push to be like, dude, we got to get out of here. Like, let's work towards getting out of here rather than just focusing on feeling good. So I think part of it was environmental, and part of it is just personality type. I like rigor, I like pushing myself, and I like that feeling of working towards something. And I also acknowledge that certain things that I like or that work for me are not going to work for a lot of other people.
I stopped doing the YouTube, I stopped doing all that work, and I did some heavy journaling sessions. And I also read a fantastic book called Time Off, which talked about not like, just taking time off, but how it's so important to integrate a rest ethic kind of into life. How proper rest fuels creativity, cleans your brain, and just helps you feel better and do more good stuff. In fact, to sidetrack a little bit here, the ancient Greeks and Romans even thought that leisure was more important than work, and they actually called it noble leisure. Aristotle thought leisure was defined entirely by itself. It was just the act of actually leisure, and it stood at the top of the hierarchy of everything else. And it wasn't until the 14th century, or about 2,000 years after the Greeks and Romans, right, that we actually started to have these centralized clock-keeping things, right? Around that 14th century time, they started to put in clock towers and timekeeping in the central square and stuff like that. So people started to be aware of what time was. And time became widely tracked and organized, right? And productivity isn't a hot trend now. It's not a fad. It was something that really, I think, started about 300 years ago with the Industrial Revolution. Time became a valuable currency, right? Because you had workers in the factory, and every hour that they had there, they were paid for that hour, right? But every hour that they had there, they also produced something. So every hour not working was literally money that wasn't being made for the company. Leisure became seen as wasting value because it was wasting money, which was a result of wasting time. So leisure became something that wasn't so valued. And in the early 19th and even 20th century, right, working was much more intense than it was even today, right? People were working 10 to 16-hour days, 6 hours a week, because that time was so heavily correlated with the actually money that you produce, right? People were working much harder. And it wasn't until Henry Ford in the 20s actually introduced the 8-hour workday and the 5-hour work week. And he wasn't doing this because he's like, I want people to have a chill time and relax. And I actually agree with the Greeks and the Romans, and we need to focus more on noble leisure. No. Henry Ford is a smart businessman, and he realized that he could get the best talent, the best engineers, the best workers if he had the most desirable working conditions, and that's exactly what he did.
It's also why you saw Google, especially like a decade ago, having the most crazy, incredible benefits to attract that top talent to make it nice to work there. And this reminds me that a lot of us think in terms of putting more time in to get more output. And the more you put in, the more you get out. It's very much active work. It's very much trading time and effort for achievement, money, accomplishment, whatever. And when you build, you need to do that at the beginning for most people to build some level of expertise and foundation, and then eventually you start leaning into leverage. And that is where you put in the same 1 unit of effort, but then you get 10 units of output rather than just 1 unit of output. You can even get 100 units of output as you improve your mastery of leverage. YouTube is a very easy one to understand. You put in the same, maybe the amount of time and effort per video changes, but let's just say similar amount of time and effort per video, and yet the reach as your channel grows just scales and scales and scales. The first video, 5 people watch it. Your 100th video, 100,000 people watch it, right? Despite it being the same amount of effort. And I talk a lot more about how you can use leverage way beyond just YouTube, but the different types of leverage and how you can use them in your own life in this Jabal and Cars video right up here.
This time tracking and this productivity thing just wasn't built into us, and we just created it artificially. It can't be just working as hard as possible, driving ourselves to the absolute extremes to get to that #1 productivity or thing to be the most best humans. But as I had these really good thoughts, right, I very quickly went off the rails and read the book, The 12-Week Year. And by doing this, I actually made really intense 12-week plan and started to figure out what I was gonna do every week, every hour, every moment of every single day. And I made the same mistake that I made in that first month. And I was so pumped up by these 12-week goals, this 12-week year and stuff like that, that I started to be disappointed in myself when I wasn't completing the tasks. Because at the end of every week, you get a percentage score that's based on the number of tasks that you complete and things like that. And if you get under an 80% or under a 70%, it's supposedly that you're not working hard enough or it's not successful and stuff like that.
The issue with tying these 12-week years, it's like you kind of plan out 3-month, a quarter at a time, what your goals are, what you want to accomplish. But the issue is that almost every single time you are going to underestimate the amount of time, effort, and complexity to get a certain thing done. So you set yourself up for disappointment by expecting a lot from yourself and always coming short. I think the better way to focus is on the quality of your work. I had a fantastic Saturday last week. Even though I didn't accomplish much, I just felt very good about how I spent my time. I just felt so content. You know, I woke up and I got my workouts in. I went to the airport and I was pretty optimized in a way where I was able to eat at the lounge and get to the flight without wasting too much time. And I felt inspired. I wrote a script on the plane. And then I hung out with my mom and my girlfriend. We had dinner together. And just looking at the way I spent my time, I felt so good. I said, dude, if I can string together a few of these days, that's all I want. Life is good. It's not about necessarily what I achieve and what I accomplish. It's about the quality of how I spend my time, which sometimes, like during that day, there was a few hours where I was doing deep, intentional, focused work, and I liked the quality of the work that came out of it. I didn't have to spend 10 hours of working that day, probably only 4 hours working, but I loved what came out of that. I think focusing on the input rather than the output is actually more important when you're measuring how good or bad a day is. And making that judgment based on the output, you set yourself up for disappointment.
And I was disappointed in myself, and I wasn't doing
There you go, disappointed in himself.
the proper work. But the funny thing is that I was the taskmaster, right? I was the decider of these things from the very beginning. So what the heck was I doing this stuff when really I should be tilting more towards this noble leisure or this Greek and Roman ideology of, you know, chilling out a little bit more for the sake of chilling out.
Again, the whole should and shouldn't, I'm trying to remove from my vocab or at least deprioritize it. It's not about should and shouldn't. It's about what feels right to you in that season of your life. And I think Zach in this season is focusing more on leisure. Yeah, man, lean into that. And then if that changes and in a few months you want to focus more on a work season, yeah, lean into that too. There's no right or wrong.
So there were these two gods, right? These two Greek gods. One was called Kronos and one was called Chyros. And Kronos was the father of time, right? He was depicted as this kind of old man holding a staff. But then there was this lesser known god, right? This guy named Chyros, who was the younger son of Zeus. And he was believed to be the spirit of opportunity. And in the book, Time Off, they describe the appearance of Chyros as this kind of guy who's completely bald, right? Other than one big point of hair that sticks out the front of his head. And that's the only way you can grab him. That's the only way you can get his attention, because he just moves so fast, so quickly, so randomly, right? That the only way that you can actually grab Chyros' attention is by grabbing him from the front, only ever from the front by this long stick of hair. And children are like Chyros all the time, right? It's impossible to grab their attention unless you literally step in front of what they're playing with, because they're just so obsessed and in the moment with what they're working on right now. While the Greek god Kronos, of course, he obsesses more on the time management, the time organization. Now, neither one of these Greek gods is necessarily better than the other Greek god, right? But when's the last time you really integrated Chyros into your life? Most of the time it's Kronos, right? And most of the time it was that for me too. What if you could actually just like build a castle, a sand castle on the beach? Have you ever done that? Or like surf for an entire day or go swimming for an entire day?
What's coming up for me, there's two ways to balance this Kronos and Chyros energy. You can do that on macro cycles or micro cycles. The macro cycle is the seasons that we were talking about earlier. Are you in the season where for the next few months of your life, you're focusing more on leisure, more on work? A lot of med students, you will get to times during third year, especially, and for some of you also during fourth year, where you really need to lean into that work season and you're going to have some tough days. I had weeks where it was like 19-hour days back to back to back to back, plus having to go home and study for next day's cases. And yeah, I'm not leaning into leisure at all during those times. That's okay. That's the macro cycle. The micro cycle is, are you able to do that in a way that is sustainable and enjoyable for you? So for me, I had this judgment, should and shouldn't, about how much leisure time I was spending during the week. This was just a couple of years ago here in Vegas. And I was trying to network more and meet up with friends more on weekdays for dinners and such. It didn't feel aligned. It felt like time that I wanted to spend more time exercising or working or doing other things. And eventually I realized, oh, hey, you know what? On weekdays, Monday through Friday, I'm not doing any socializing. I'm going to work. I'm going to get my cycling in. I'm going to get my strength training in. And I'm going to hopefully do a little bit of sim racing. And that's all I want to do. On the weekends, I'm going to have more of this Chyros energy. And that's the way that in the microcycle, it works for me. On the weekends, I'm going to have certain days where I'm not going to work, certain days where I do want to work. And sometimes I'll do a full day trip someplace with friends or family or my partner, and designing my life more in that way as to what feels aligned with my preferences, rather than, oh, I'm working too much. People say that you shouldn't work so much and I should spend more time socializing. Like, well, this is the microcycle of Kronos and Chyros that works for me. And yours can be different. It should be different. That's great. That's fine.
I couldn't remember the last time I ever did something an entire day without my phone just for the sake of doing it.
Just for the sake of doing it. You're doing an activity as an end in and of itself versus as a means to an end. This is what we call an autotelic activity. It's inherently rewarding. This opens up a very fascinating discussion about high and low leverage activities. There are certain things you can do that are autotelic, that are better for your life, your goals, your values, and your priorities versus other things. Watching Netflix is autotelic. I'm not saying you should never watch Netflix, but if you spent all your time on just Netflix and just watching movies and TV shows, I would argue your life will be measurably worse compared to if you did another autotelic activity. Maybe it's surfing, as Zach was mentioning. Or for me, it's a lot of like racing, taking my car to the racetrack, driving other people's cars in the canyons, doing reviews, stuff that I would do just for the sake of doing it. But there are many downstream benefits, things that make it a higher leverage activity versus watching Netflix. I'm gonna cover that more in a future video. So subscribe if you want to see that.
I decided, okay, for month number 4, I'm just gonna do something Chyros-y. I'm gonna do something that I wanna do. And I decided to just go to an island somewhere where it's warm and just stay there for a month and do really a lot of nothing. And that's exactly what I did. Or that's exactly what I planned to do. On week number 1, I had a project that was running a little bit over, so I said, it's okay, I'll just work on it a little bit during this week. It's not gonna, influence me that much. A little bit of work is fine. But then on week number 2, I recommitted, right? And so for week number 2 and week number 3, I actually did nothing. I would wake up, I would work out, maybe go for a walk, have some breakfast, sit on the beach and read and swim and snorkel and surf and do whatever for just hours and hours at a time with my phone left back at the kind of Airbnb or hotel. But then at the end of that 3rd week, right, the planning part of Zach, the planning gears of Zach's mind started to come around again. And I realized, I kind of want to plan something. I kind of want to do something. And I just couldn't sit there and read on the beach anymore. It was just, I exhausted that chilling muscle. And I realized
I'm laughing because I can relate so hard to this.
And I even scheduled my flight home a week earlier because I just so wanted to get started doing stuff again. But it felt different this time. Now when I arrived home, similarly to when I kind of left medicine after that first month, I realized I needed that break, that real sign off, that real sign out. Because that first month, right, when I left medicine, I think I was still recovering, getting a sense of things, making sure my body and mind was in the right place. But this second sign out really was, that part was over. I kind of was okay of leaving medicine, right? Inside, I was kind of realized that this was the right thing for me. I talked to a lot of people. I did a lot of self-reflection, but I really also needed some time to just back up away from anything. I went straight from quitting medicine to planning my entire life to smashing out YouTube videos, and I never really focused on taking a real vacation, and I desperately needed it after 10 years.
It's interesting. I think that we all would have a similar feeling, just at different time points and durations. So many people in the FIRE movement, financial independence, retirement early, they think, hey, I'm going to retire, never work again, and then just leisure time every day. And many people find a lack of purpose and some discomfort from doing so, and they end up returning back to some kind of passion project, something to apply themselves toward. And that can sometimes even be like, hey, I want to give my kids the best possible upbringing and really focus on their education. And there's a lot of different things you can do, but just thinking you're going to sit back and relax and enjoy every day without a project you're working on or some kind of area of focus, it usually results in this kind of feeling of being uncomfortable and maybe a bit lost and a bit rudderless. I love when I travel, I tend to break out of my normal routine and I become more intentional on each and every moment. And I like that because when I come back home, I feel a bit refreshed and I feel like I have a fresh perspective. And for me, I found that traveling more than 10 to 14 days is a bit too much for me. And last year I did two-week trips. I went to India, did a whole AMA on the India trip. And I also went to Hawaii and Japan soon after that. And each of those trips were 2 weeks, or maybe even a little bit more than 2 weeks. And by day 10, I was itching to go home. So everyone has that different duration point that's optimal. But now when I plan international trips, I tend to keep them between 7 to 10 days.
But what I realized too is that, okay, if this 2 weeks, 3 weeks made me feel so good, I need to integrate more of a rest ethic into my daily life. And that's exactly what I did, right? I still like to be productive in the morning, right? But around month 4, month number 5, I started to wake up around 4:35 just because I wanted to wake up at 4:35 and I liked doing that. Doing all my work, some exercise and stuff like that. Essentially what I was doing on the beach, but on the work front until around 2 p.m., right? And then at 2 p.m., I stopped doing all work. I wanted like half of my day to be rest and relaxation and half of my day to be work. So at 2 p.m., I would, basically eat some food, maybe go exercise again, maybe do a fun sport, maybe read a book, maybe watch a TV show, don't say that, maybe talk with family, maybe go somewhere, maybe cook a dinner, just do Chyros time.
This is cool. He is finding that microcycle that works for him. So I tried this myself, where I work up until a certain time, and then in the evenings hang out with friends, like I was talking about earlier during the weekdays. It didn't feel right for me, but it feels right for Zach. That's the cool thing. You experiment, you hear from other perspectives, you hear different things that work for different people, you try it on for size, and you decide. Going back to the macro versus microcycle discussion, one thing that he said that reminds me of my own strategy here is integrating this at a regular interval. So since last year, I've made it a point to plan a bigger trip every quarter. And again, that bigger trip was 2 weeks initially, but now it's more like 7 to 10 days. So last year I did Japan twice, did Hawaii, did India. This year I've already done Japan, right? And I've made it a point to now experiment every quarter, 7 to 10 days, once per quarter, a trip to help reset and add more of that regular reset time.
And this was a hugely monumental thing to do. It was monumental because I felt like the days weren't stacking up on each other. The projects weren't stacking up on each other. I wasn't getting stressed because I was falling behind and not doing things because there was nothing to fall behind on. I knew the only important thing was to work for a certain amount of hours and to relax for a certain amount of hours.
Boom. He's no longer focusing on the goals. He's talking about the input. He's satisfied with the quality of his work during those hours per day, and that's it. He's not focusing on, oh my God, I'm behind on my what else to do during this week versus the next week and the week before. I like that. Happy to hear that, Zach.
Things to me, integrating a rest ethic while also being excited by the work I was doing in the morning. And I honestly think it's a fantastic and great way to live life. If I was making enough money from doing this thing, and maybe doing a few other things, because I don't think I want to be just a YouTuber, I would strongly consider doing entrepreneurial stuff like the rest of my life. And I think I will get there at one point in a couple of years. I just don't think I'm ready yet to do that.
For the right person, entrepreneurship is unlike anything else. It's so exciting and invigorating and all these possibilities. And I think Zach is very much that right kind of person. And I think this other path he's taking for a couple of years, it makes sense why he's doing it. Obviously, he's keeping that under wraps, so not going to steal his thunder. But when he does disclose that on his channel, then I would love to talk about that more in depth, about the relative pros and cons of that path.
But that's what my life has been for the past 2 months. I've been exercising, gaining weight. For me, it's really hard to put on weight. I haven't been stressed at all. I've been spending time with family. I wrote a book. I finished an entire, nearly 100-hour YouTube course and stuff like that. I've worked on stuff and accomplished things and created things that I think are some of the best things that I've ever done in the world while working less than I've ever worked in my entire life. And I think it really showed me the importance of just integrating this chill time, integrating this rest ethic into my everyday life. And that brings us to where we are right now. I think for the next 6 months, I'm gonna be doing a lot of the same with a couple more 2-3 week adventures. Like right now, as you can see, this isn't in Pennsylvania. I'm on one of these 2-week adventures, but I just thought, that part of the brain that's wanted to do stuff would be cool to record one of these videos while I was here. And I thought it might be nice to update you all on kind of what has been going on in my mind, my reaction to the internet's reaction and stuff like that. And then I'm doing okay. People are really so kind. They're checking in on me. They think I'm stressed. They think I'm freaking out. I really feel the best and the healthiest that I've ever felt in my entire life.
Fuck yes. Happy to hear that, Zach.
Extreme time off and then integrating some real rest ethic into my daily life. It's been huge for me, really, really huge. So one of these 2-week adventures is what I'm on right now. I'm in love with surfing now. I'm addicted to surfing. I'm gonna go surfing on the Jersey Shore. If anyone's on the Jersey Shore and can help me learn how to surf, that'd be great, because it might be my life for the next year because I just like it so much. My friends that I'm actually traveling with right now are annoyed with me because I just spend so much time surfing. But I think part of that, right, is this Chyros time. I was like, I'm having so much fun out here. I want to do this more. fuck, F it. Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? This is the time to do it. And there's that part of my brain that says, Zach, you got to work on the YouTube videos. You got to work on other courses. You got to work on creating products. You got to work on being a successful entrepreneur and da 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 da. But then the other part of me, which I'm so happy that I've brought up a little bit, is saying, chill, Zach. Do what you want. What's the point of life? Wouldn't it be nice to have some time to relax and do what's fun and exciting and where you lose yourself in the moment for? Yeah, I think it would, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
I think the secret there's two words that come up: intensity and intention. What is going to rob you of your time and your energy and your satisfaction in life in general is trying to combine work and leisure. And you'll see people who will hop on their laptop with the football game playing in the background, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm like doing a bit of work, also doing a bit of game watching, I'm doing both. You will not get any meaningful amount of work done, and you're not going to feel restored after that. Focus on intention and intensity. So intensely work with no distractions, and then intensely relax. I know that's an oxymoron, but focus entirely on relaxing and disconnecting and doing high quality relaxation. Don't do that nonsense in the middle. I've been saying this since some of the earliest Med School Insiders videos in like 2016, because I think multitasking is very much misunderstood. There is a right way to multitask, pairing an automatic with a non-automatic task. And then there's the wrong way to multitask, which is where people try to do multiple non-automatic tasks together. Walking is automatic. Having a conversation, non-automatic, that's fine. Working on your laptop, non-automatic. Watching the football game, not automatic, not a good use of your time. Focus on that intensity and intentionality with your time. From my experience, I think life is enjoyed much more when you approach it in that way.
Overall, I'm much more happy and I feel much better than I did a year ago, and even at the first 2 months after I left medicine. And I think some of the best things for me, right, are these half work, half chill days. Much, much, much less phone time. I'm talking from 4 hours and a half to only 30 minutes a day.
Dude, even though me and Zach have arrived at different points in terms of how we like to spend our time day to day, it is incredible that he is experimenting and approaching with intentionality, and I applaud him for that. And I hope that you guys can see different flavors, right, to the same question. And he has one solution, I have a different solution, you'll have a totally different solution too, and it's cool. We can all share notes and learn and grow together. It's dope.
Consistent wake and sleep times, good food that I cook, lots of family time, lots more reading, lots of less TV, much, much more nature and being outside time. I find personally it's just like rejuvenating in a way that I never thought possible. More saunas and cold plunges, more long chats with friends, more long dinners with friends, much more being bored and me not having anything to do and asking myself why in the moment. And this seems to be working so well, in fact, so freaking well, that I'm actually scared to enter the real world. I'm gonna talk about it in a little bit, but I'll be entering into a career at the end of this kind of time off, vacation time. That's a really real career. Like, it's hard work, long hours. It's gonna be very little leisure time. And I was speaking to a friend the other day on the phone, and she said, Zach, what do you do with your days? What do you do with your life? And I said, mostly chill time, most timely time for me. And I like to think that I have a plan, I know what I'm doing and stuff like that, but really, I have no idea. And I think that's okay. And I think Chyros would be proud.
I think most of us have no idea what we're doing, and all of us are just making it up as we go along.
But what's the next plan after the 6 months? So I secured a job, my first choice job offer at my first choice job company, but I realized that I need a little bit more of this structured environment, the structured training. And I don't want to be too specific, and I'm sorry, but I will reveal exactly what I'm doing, exactly the new city I'm moving to, kind of in another post and in another video. And I feel excited about it, and it's satisfied this part of me that says, you need a plan, you need to know what you're doing, otherwise your brain's not going to work in the right direction. But another part of me is really happy with the life I'm living right now. And there's this amazing quote by Derek Sivers: never forget why you're really doing what you're doing. Are you happy? Are you helping other people? Are you profitable? Isn't that enough? And I'm happy. I'm helping other people. I'm making decent money doing this. Is that enough? I don't know. It's kind of a reality check for me. And part of me realizes that going for bigger, 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 more, 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 isn't really gonna make me happy. And the research supports this, right? This is the classic hedonic treadmill. I'm just searching for the bigger thing, for more happiness, even though really, in reality, it's not gonna create more happiness. It's not gonna create more fulfillment in life. That fulfillment will really come from me.
Yeah, the goalpost moves each time you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to be happy when X, Y, and Z happens. I achieve this thing, I do whatever. Then you get there, it's a brief moment, and then on to the next goalpost that has now moved. Oh, it wasn't just becoming a doctor, it was now also becoming X, Y, and Z. I think believing that lie that we all tell ourselves is a recipe for being dissatisfied with life. But that also doesn't mean it's wrong to work towards goals. Life is happening in the moment to moment. 99.9% of your life is working towards those goals. It's between those moments of achievement and accomplishment and I'll be happy when, right? That when moment is just an instant in time. And you're working several years to become that. As a pre-med, I'll be happy when I get into med school. As a med student, I'll be happy when I get into residency. As a resident, I'll be happy when I become an attending, and so on and so forth. And I don't think it's wrong to want to work toward goals. There's so much joy and pleasure that comes toward inching closer to your goals and developing as the person who can accomplish those things and seeing yourself grow and expand and learn in the process. That's fantastic. But you have to remember that life is not then when that thing happens. Life is right now as you are working towards that thing. And I wish I knew that sooner. I only learned that in my late 20s. And really thankful that people like Zach are having these very open and authentic conversations, sharing their story, sharing their thought process. It's incredible, right? We all learn from this. Super happy for Zach. Let me know what you think with the comment below.